Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah. We begin our lesson in the Sullam of Al-Imam Al-Akhdari, the knowledge of Mantiq, by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we pray that Allah make it easy and upon us and to understand the subject. And we pray that Allah make this session a blessed one, a reason where our sins are forgiven, our prayers are answered, inshallah ta'ala. Ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. In our last lesson, we were speaking about the Shaklul Awwal, the conditions of Shaklul Awwal, in the first form in the Qiyas, in the chapter of Qiyas, where the author mentioned the four forms. We have Shaklul Awwal, Shaklul Thani, Shaklul Thalis, and Shaklul Rabi', the first, second, the third, and the fourth. And we mentioned the difference between the first and the second and the third and the fourth is depends on the Haddul Awsat, the medium term. Where does the medium term falls? If the middle term falls in the subject of the conclusion in the first premise, and the predicate of the conclusion in the second premise, and we call it, and this is the first form. This is the first form. So we have spoken about the first form last week, and also the conditions. We mentioned about a few conditions, so I have shown you the table. So today, inshallah ta'ala, we will go on to the second form. So we will just read from Sullam, where the author mentioned Ammal Awwalu. This is the first form. He said the first form, Fashartuhu al-ijabu fi surahu. This is what we mentioned last week when we speak about the conditions. So the first condition, he said that it must be a positive proposition in the first premise. It must be positive statement in the first premise. And as for the second premise, it must be kulliyah, it must be universal. Universals. Either we say we use the word all, and for example in English, in Arabic, we say kullu. We say this is kulliyah. So this is the two conditions when it comes to the first form. So number one, it must be a positive proposition in the first premise. Number two, it must be a universal proposition in the second premise. And I showed you in the chart, and altogether we have four of the types of syllogism that can give the proper conclusion or valid conclusion, whereas the rest of the 16 does not give a valid conclusion. So this is going to be the same when it comes to the second Shaklu Thani, the second form. The conditions are different, but the way we are going to speak is the same as the first Shakl when it comes to the conditions. So he mentioned Wathani an yakhtalifa fil kayfi. So when it comes into the second Shakl, the author is saying is that the two premises, the minor and the major premise, there must be a difference in terms of positivity and negativity. Al-Kayfi refers to positivity and negativity. So either the first premise or the minor premise is positive and the second premise is negative, or the minor premise is negative and the major premise is positive. So this is the meaning of al-ikhtilaf in terms of al-kayf, in terms of positivity and negativity. So this is the first condition. The first condition is that the minor premise in terms of positivity and negativity, it must differ with one another. The minor and the major must be opposite in terms of positivity and negativity. So this is the first condition. All these conditions we were speaking about a valid conclusion. In order for this type of syllogism, this type of form in syllogism to give a valid conclusion, then this is the condition. This is number one in terms of positivity and negativity in the minor premise. The second condition he mentioned, when comes to the major premise, He say ma kulliyatil kubra lahu syaratun waqa. The major premise and it must be of a universal. Must be any of a universal any proposition. So these are the two conditions. Number one, the difference in positivity and negativity between the minor and the major premise. Number two, the major premise and it must carry a universal. Must carry a universal kind of proposition. So now we are just I'll just show you what you call it, the example of what does it mean shakl thani in case what you call it, some of you forgot and those who were following. So this is an example of a second premise. So if you look second premise, not second premise, second shakl, second form. So the predicate of the middle any term, all the middle term in both any premises are in the predicate. Kullu insan hayawan. So this is the mahmul. In English we call it the predicate. So this is the subject and this is the predicate. The second, the major premise also, the middle term is in the predicate. This is what we meant by ash-shaklu thani, meaning the second form, and this is what we are going to speak about. So last week we covered this. You see there is a difference in terms of the subject, the placing of the subject and the predicate in the minor and the major premise. So all these things we have mentioned. So all goes back to the middle term. We call it the middle term, the hadul awsat. Where is the middle term? Whether the middle term in the first premise is in the subject or in the predicate, or the major premise, and whether the middle term is in the subject or the predicate. So in the case of the ashaklu thani, the second form, the predicate, the middle term is the predicate of the first premise and also the second premise. So now I will just show you an example. Give me a minute now. So what I will do, I will show you the examples, but today I didn't have time to make the table. Inshallah. Okay. So this is what I got from a book written by Sheikh Sa'id Fuda, where he wrote a commentary on the Sullam of Al-Imam Al-Akhdari. So now when we are going, I need to look at the conditions of al-intaj. This is what he said, shurutul intaj. So Al-Imam Al-Akhdari in Sullam mentioned two conditions. This is called the shurutul intaj, meaning it is a valid syllogism. It then produces a valid conclusion in terms of the argumentation, and the conclusion is valid. So we say this is the conditions. Al-awwal, and he say an takhtalifa al-muqaddimatani fil kayf. So number one, as what we mentioned, that in terms of al-kayf here meaning the positivity and the negativity, bi an takuna ihdahuma mujibatan wal ukhra salibatan. So he gave an example. For example, the first premise is a positive proposition. The second premise is a negative proposition. This is the first condition. The second condition, an takuna al-kubra kulliyatan mujibatan aw salibatan. So the major premise must be universal, kulliya, regardless whether it is mujiba or saliba, whether it is a positive proposition or negative proposition. And then he mentioned the examples. So he said that ad-durubul muntija arba'atun faqat. So when we apply these two conditions to the various types of syllogism, so we will get four types that is valid. That is valid here means from this four types of syllogism, it produces valid conclusion. So there are 4. Number 1, and he said mujibatan kulliyatan surah. Yani the first premise is mujibah kulliyah. Mujibah yani kulliyah. I'll show you another one. Yeah, this is easier because earlier I got some problems with my Microsoft Word. I cannot do any editing. Okay. Okay, this is where we are. So we mentioned there are 4. So number 1, the example number 1 is mujiba kulliyah. In the first premise is mujiba kulliyah. In the second premise saliba kulliyah. So the example is this kullu insan hayawan. Kullu insan hayawan. So this is an example. We say mujiba kulliyah or mujaba kulliyah. Mujaba meaning what? Meaning is a positive statement. This is a positive statement. Kullu insan hayawan. Basically, the statement is saying that all humans are beings, and it is kulliyah. It is a universal statement because of the word kullu. So in English, we say all humans are beings. All humans are beings. So this is the first premise. The second premise, salibatun kulliyatun kubra. It is saliba. It is a what you call a negative statement. Negative statement. And also there is kulliyah, a universal negative statement. An example will be la shay'a min al-hajari bi hayawan. La shay'a. This is a universal statement. We are saying nothing, none. And it encompasses a general meaning, a general encompassment. So this is a universal negation. We say la shay'a, nothing. Min al-hajari, from amongst any stones, bi hayawan, are beings. Any meaning nothing from all the stones that are in existence, none of them is a form of being. Yani stones is a living thing, non-living thing. So this is a true statement. Then we get one natija saliba kulliyah. As for the conclusion, it will be a negative universal. So the conclusion is la shay'a min al-insani bihajarin. Nothing from amongst human beings are stones, which is a true statement. So this is an example of the first type of syllogism within the type of the second shackle. That is Mantiq. We call it Mantiq because the conclusion is valid. So this is the first type. So what is this type? It is mujiba or mujaba kulliyah in the first premise and saliba kulliyah in the second premise. So in the minor premise with mujaba kulliyah, the major premise saliba kulliyah. So the natija is saliba kulliyah. That's what we mentioned. So this is the first type. Actually, as what I mentioned, I wanted to show the table. As what last week I showed the table. It is exactly the same table with the 16, because we have the 4 possibilities of the minor premise and the 4 possibilities of the major premise. So 4 times 4 you get 16. So out of the 16, only 4 is considered to be valid, and this is what we are discussing now. But because I'm able to make that table, as what we saw last week, is I hope in any ways those who are following can understand what is mentioned. So now we are going to the second type. The second type he say aksu darb al-awwal. It is the opposite of the first type. What is the meaning of opposite here? Because the first type earlier we mentioned the minor premise carries a positive sentence. major premise, negative sentence. So now we switch. How about we make the minor premise, which is the first premise, to be a negative any statement. The major premise becomes the positive any statement. So this is the meaning of aks. Then he mentioned فَيَتَأَلَّفُ مِنْ سَالِبَةٍ كُلِّيَّةٍ surah. So the first premise saliba kulliya, a negative universal, wa mujiba kulliya kubra. As for the major premise, it is a positive universal. So negative and universal, the example is this: La shay'a minal hajari bihayawan. None amongst stones are beings. Negative universal. Positive universal, kullu insan hayawan. All humans are beings. And the natija saliba kulliya, negative universal. La shay'a minal hajari bi insan. None among stones are humans. So this is the second example, or the second type. And then we go to the third type. The third type, yata'allafu min mujibatin juz'iyyatin surah. So the minor premise is mujiba juz'iyya. Now we have this particular juz'iyya. Juz'iyya, we have the word ba'd here. Ba'd. In English we call it some. This is the opposite of kulliyya. Kulliyya we say all or none. When it comes to juz'iyya, we say some. So this is the meaning of particular. So in English we call it universal and particular. So particular is the opposite of universal. Universal encompass all, whereas particular speaks about part or some of what is mentioned. So he mentioned mujaba juz'iyya. So now he's going to use juz'iyya. So the first two examples all we use what you call it universals in terms of we use universal kulliya and kulliya. So now he going to use juz'iyya, and then we play around with the positivity and negativity. So we are going to start with a positive statement. Positive statement for the third type. So it is mujaba juz'iyya. So it is a positive particular in the first premise. Saliba kulliya, negative universal in the second premise, which is the what you call it major premise. Basically it's the same when you say minor premise and major premise, or first premise or second premise. So what is the example? The example of mujaba juz'iyya, we say ba'dul hayawani insan. Ba'dul hayawan insan. So we have the word ba'd here. Ba'd here is some. Some hayawan. Hayawan are beings. Some beings, part of beings, insan are humans. And this is correct sentence. Because hayawan, we have animals and we have human beings. So part of beings is humans. They are also animals and other things. So this is a correct statement. And this is an example again, a positive sentence, but it is particular. Mujaba juz'iyya. And when it comes to the second premise or the major premise, it is saliba kulliya. So we have again the word la shay'a, which is translated as none. None. This is saliba kulliya. It is a negative statement because it began with a negative particle, and it is kulliya. It is universal. So none minal faras. Faras is a horse. None from any horse is human. Nothing from horse is considered to be a human. Of course, horses and human beings are different entities. Horses and human beings are totally different entities. So we say none of horses are humans. Wa natija saliba juz'iyya, the conclusion will be a negative particular. Laisa ba'dul hayawan bifaras. Not a part of humans, not a part of beings. Laisa ba'dul hayawan bifaras. Not a part of beings are horse, because they are something else, and humans are also a part of beings. So this is a correct statement. So this is an example This is an example where you have the minor premise mujaba juz'iyya, the major premise saliba kulliyya. Now when we go on to the last type, that is ad-darb rabi'. So just to take note, the meaning of the difference between the word darb and shakal is that darb when you apply the universality and particular the particulars. When you apply any universals and particulars to syllogism, we call it in Arabic we call it darb. We call it, this is the word darb. So the author mentioned the third type, the fourth type, yata'allafu min salibatin juz'iyya. So now we are going to get the first premise a negative particular. Negative particular. So just to take note, the first type we mentioned positive universal. Second type negative universal. Third type positive particular. Now we are in the fourth type, negative particular. Tamam? Because why? Because the first condition as what we mentioned earlier, that the first premise and the second premise they must differ in terms of the kayf. Al-kayf in Mantiq it means the positivity and negativity as what I mentioned. So now we are going to do this, the first premise saliba juz'iyya. It is a negative particular, and then the second premise is mujaba kulliyya. It is a positive universal. So the example will be laysa ba'dul hayawan bi insan. Laysa ba'dul hayawan bi insan. Not any apart of beings is human. So this is a negative particular. So you see the word ba'd here. Then we have the positive universal. Wa kullu natiqin insan. Every intellectual being is human. Wa natija, as for the conclusion, it becomes saliba juz'iyya. Laysa ba'dul hayawan binatiqin. Some beings are not intellectual. And this is a correct statement. So these are the four types of the second shakal that gives us the proper natija, the proper conclusion, which is muntij, and we call it these are the types of syllogism that gives us the correct conclusion. Next week inshallah we will mention the others, the types of syllogism within this shakal, within this type that does not, of this form of syllogism that does not give the required conclusion. And this is where the author will from the commentary and Sheikh Said Fuda will speak about some of those examples. So now before we close we go back to the Sullam. Sullam is very concise. Al-Imam al-Akhdari mentioned fashartuhu al-ijabu fi surahu wa antura kulliyatan kubrahu. This is the last week we spoke about. Today we only mentioned this imagine wasani, as for the shakl thani, an yakhtalifa fil kayf, that both the premises they differ in terms of al-kayf, and al-kayf is what we mentioned, it is positivity and negativity ma'a kulliyatil kubra. Kulliyatul kubra, the major premise must be universal, must be kulliyya. Lahu shartun waqa'. Then he mentioned wathalisu al-ijabu fi surahuma wa antura kulliyatan ihdahuma. Next week, if we have time, we go on to the third shakal and the conditions, and altogether we have number 4. Then inshallah ta'ala we will move on from there. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.